Welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Welcome to Turn the Page podcast. This is Jessica, one of your hosts. My co-host today is...
Hi, I'm Jen. Thanks for coming.
And we are here with an author who wrote a book that was so many things. I can't even begin to describe it. So I'm going to let her introduce herself first, tell us from her perspective what the book is about, and then we can chat about it.
Yeah. So I'm Claudia Lux, and thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. This is really fun. This is actually my first podcast as an author. The first time I'm talking about this on a podcast forum. So I'm really honored and pumped to be here. In terms of the book, I mean, you and me both. I wrote the thing and I have a hard time coming up with how to describe it. So I hear you, and I've heard that as well from other people. I think that I think in a lot of ways it doesn't really conform to certain genres because I kind of mixed it up a lot. So I describe, do you want kind of my elevator pitch or what I would define it as genre-wise?
I think elevator pitch sounds good.
Okay.
But the title, we have not mentioned.
Oh yeah, the title is called, yeah, that's important. The book is called Sign Here. And it comes out on October 25th, everywhere books are sold, from Berkeley through Penguin. And so my elevator pitch, maybe you guys can help me with this because this is something I'm trying to hone for this experience as I'm talking about it. And I feel like the way I used to tell it, it would go, do you want to hear my elevator pitch? And then whoever I had cornered would say, yeah, sure, I guess. And then I would say, this is a book that takes place largely in hell. The main character's name is Peyote Trip, at which point the other person would always go, I'm sorry, what? And then I would push past that, my name is Peyote Trip. His name is Peyote Trip, and he lives and works in hell. And, and he works on the 5th floor, which is the deals department. So he's the guy who shows up to take your souls if you want to sell them for something. And the book follows him as he follows one wealthy New England family as they spend their summer in New Hampshire. And the book is really kind of focused on secrets and loss and kind of what the things that we don't say to each other, how that can kind of fester, and who the person whose attention that garners, tends to be Peyote Trip, the guy from hell. So that's kind of what I'm working with right now. I'm not accustomed to people who really want to hear it, as opposed to just people that I've cornered in a living room somewhere. So Yeah,
I love that pitch. And, I love that, when I started reading the book, I thought it was going to be one thing. And as I got into it, I'm like, oh, this is this other thing, and also this other thing, and also this other thing. And one of the things that I kind of like when I am, pitching it to like people who I want to read it, I'm like, I thought it was going to be like Office Space in hell, but it's kind of more like Glengarry Glen Ross in hell.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it is, and I think that for me, it feels, it's been fascinating to kind of learn all these genres for starters. I didn't know that. I mean, things have gotten so specific in their genreification. I don't know if that's a word, but, and so, I'm hearing paranormal fiction, and I'm hearing horror, and I'm hearing, a bunch of things in addition to thriller and satire, which is kind of where my head was at when I was writing it. And I'm not a horror consumer. I get scared really easily. So to hear that my book is in the horror category, I'm actually like, wow, I'm a badass. All right. I'm not nearly as scared as I thought I was. But yeah, it's definitely been an interesting, it's a pretty amorphous kind of thing to nail down, which I have a lot of fun with. I think is kind of an exciting thing for a reader. I know it was an exciting thing as a writer. So yeah.
It was so emotionally just like wrought, this book, which is all of these things. It's got comedy in it. It's got you know, like your office drama comedy. It's got your family secrets thing, and like you know, one of the things when I'm reading the book, or when I read the book, that I kept like kind of saying, like, when certain things hit, I was like, I did not sign up for this. You know, you just
But the book title demands that you do. Yeah.
exactly. And I don't know if that was specifically something you thought of, but really, like, what you're getting yourself into is a lot of emotion. And what could have just been a very silly book, which would not have been a bad thing, really was something that made you feel. I mean, so basically, so peyote, like, he wants to get a matched set, which means what exactly?
Yeah, he needs to get 5 generations of the same family to sell their soul. So, you know, that means that he needs to get 5 different members of the same family in different generations. I think there's one family where he gets a couple of in the same generation, but he needs to have the whole complete set of the trajectory. And then he gets some promotions. One of the first things I thought about when I started crowdsourcing and thinking about what I wanted this hell to look like was the idea of, I had a line in there about how if you get this complete set, you get a promotion, and with that comes 3 vacation days, and if you take those in purgatory, they feel like a month. So like that was kind of a little bit of my kind of bit in the beginning, but I wound up cutting that part. But yeah, the idea in the beginning of the book, as far as you know, is just that that's what he wants. He wants the promotion, and he wants you know, to get this complete set for that reason alone in the beginning.
And there's this family that he is kind of focused on. You talk a little bit about how time works in hell, you know, a little bit about the different levels, I suppose, but there's the Harrison family, and they are the ones who are taking this trip, and they have they have a son, and they have a daughter who's like very much on the cusp of something. You know, she's not fully formed in her own mind or her heart. She's not particularly confident or solidified in who she is, but she ends up making a friend who's got all the things that she almost like wants to be, even if she's kind of afraid of that. And that friend ends up coming on a vacation with them. So it's like it bounces back and forth between peyote and his need to get another person from the Harrison family in order to get his matched set, and then exactly what the deal with this family is, and you know, like, why and how he wants to make a deal with them. And then there is the question of Calamity Gannon, who is the new hire in Peyote's department, who is just ready to just blow up his opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, she's in it for Calamity, for sure. Yeah. I don't know if either of you are nerdy enough or are nerdy enough at the right time to recognize that reference. Or I know I say it in the book also, but it's the name of the bad guy from the Zelda series.
Yeah, my kids both dressed up as different versions of Link from The Legend of Zelda. I
appreciate it. Okay.
That's the Halloween costume for this year. It was the
Amazing.
costume at our library's convention. I'm possibly going to be Malin, and my kids have also told that my husband that he has to be the horse. So I might have to get him a horse mask. But I
love riding that horse. Yeah, that was like one of the best parts, and picking up all the little cabbages. Yeah.
But you know, he's like, why do I have to be the horse? But I do know who Ganon is, or Ganondorf, depending on what version of Zelda you're playing. So yeah, that was cool.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely cool. Yeah. So that was you know, I heard that name whenever it was that game came out, you know, a long time ago. I heard that name and got and I always just thought it was a really beautiful name, you know, but that's not the kind of thing you can like name a kid. So I felt like, you know, this was kind of the better way to to insert this name into my life. Yeah.
in general, I love all of the names in this book, and I would love to like find out more about like how the naming fits into like the really interesting and funny and upsetting world that you're building here.
Yeah.
And one thing I love in particular is that you have so many like far out there names like Peyote Trip and Calamity Ganon, but then there's like Trey,
Yeah.
and like that is, but it's so fitting because he's such a Trey, like he's such a Trey, so
He's like, yeah,
Exactly.
he's that bro that you're
yeah.
just like, oh God, who would I
Yeah.
invited
Absolutely.
Trey and his fraternity brothers here? Why?
Yeah. He's the guy who like won't leave college, who like keeps going to the frat parties, like trying to relive the glory days. Yeah. No, I had so much fun writing him. It was really fun to write the characters in hell to really kind of let my inner jackass out. I mean, that was really to be able to kind of really lean into the worst, in my opinion, the worst kind of man with Trey. But yeah, with the names. So part of what I did in order to build this world was I started asking friends and strangers and people I ran into, people I worked with, my family, whoever I could kind of talk to. I would start conversations about, what if hell was just consistent discomfort and unpleasantness? Like what if it was just like that forever? What would be in your hell if it was catered to you? Like what would you have in there? What would be your thing for sure? And one of the first answers I got was like cringy celebrity baby names, like people who like name their kids something like Miller Lite, or whatever it is. And so that's how I came up with, okay, I was like, all these characters have to have cheesy celebrity baby names. Like it just has to happen. But then with KQ, so KQ's full name is, and I don't know if y'all have looked on my website, or if you knew this, but I have a packet that I talk about the hell orientation packet in the book. And I actually made a version of that packet and it's on my website. So that has some more kind of background information. It's, what happens on each level and the kind of turns of phrase that they use in the office. It kind of explains what some of those mean. But in that document, you learn that KQ is actually short for kumquat. So that's her name. But I couldn't take myself seriously when I would actually write kumquat. So in my, like when I was just writing it to myself, I just called her KQ and then it stuck like that. So so that's kind of the idea, that you get to hell and you get some kind of terrible celebrity baby name. Trey, it just cracked me up just to call him Trey, because like everybody knows a Trey. So that was really the idea there. But I had so much fun and a lot of the details really came from that crowdsourcing and what I was doing to kind of talk to different people. And that's where the puddles came from and some other details as well. And then some of it is just my pet peeves, like those drink and ride bike trolley things that slow down traffic everywhere they go. Yeah.
And like only one type of beer, right?
That's right. No beer. It's just the underground. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, like, if you were in college in the early 21st century, that was actually your reality. Like, there was only Jaeger. Like,
exactly. Yes. And I mean, without spilling too much of my own stuff on podcasts, I can say that Jägermeister, I had a bad experience with Jaeger at a one night when I was in college, and just that's why it had to be in there. It's just one of those things that once you once you have a bad night with Jaeger, you can never go back. Yeah. I'm worried they're going to sue me.
Oh no! I mean, please. They have a lot of people who claim to like Jaeger.
Oh, so, I know. That's the other thing that's been shocking is people have really come out of the woodwork in defense of Jaeger. So, we're going to have it following.
I mean, I would say I would know one thing for my own personal hell, but I don't want to insult the author. I'd be insulting on it, but it would be one particular person's book is the only book available.
As long as you don't say my book, then
no,
that's fine. Yeah.
No. But I'm thinking, I'm like, I know what it would be, but I don't want to insult them or maybe like their publisher. So
sure. And that makes sense.
Really, they're very successful. It's not James Patterson, by the way. I know everybody likes to really like, especially on TikTok, James Patterson gets a lot of knocks, but it's not that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I do really like I did really like just the whole, like feeling like it's just very unpleasant. Everything is just very unpleasant.
Yeah.
Just, just enough to make you be like, I just need to get out of here.
Right.
But you build, like, you have this world building, and you have this family building happening side by side. And you learn a lot about the Harrison family. And I mean, their daughter Mickey is just too perfect. She's is she 13? I'm trying to remember. This is
Yeah, I know I say it in one line because this is one of those things that copy editors, like you track very carefully, and I made sure to like track this very well. I can't remember right now if I believe she's either 13 or 14. She's going into ninth grade, I think is how it's set up.
yeah, and she has this her friend Ruth is like, everything again, she's cool. She could hang out with the popular kids, but she's decided to pretty much hang out with Mickey and claim her as her best friend. And it just sort of changes a lot in a time of a lot of change. There's a lot. She's at a point, and I focus on her because I really feel like, in a way, she is like the center of the compass for this family, and how this family like is kind of orbiting around their own secrets. Because while her brother is a little bit older, and is a little bit more cynical, and sees certain things as maybe imperfect, she still is in that point where she feels that magic that you would feel when you're not quite a teenager yet. And you still feel those feelings for your parents, but you also want to break out and be with friends. And it was just it was really interesting to sort of have just the cynicism of hell, the purgatory of, that her brother who's a teenager and not quite an adult, and her parents who have screwed up in so many ways, and then just have like this really pure soul who's not quite there yet, but eventually, she's open to figuring out how she's gonna get to the next level.
Right. Yeah. No, I think you're hitting on a really important theme that I was kind of playing with in this book, which was the effect of time. So, I think that part of my point about this hell is that, I think he says in the beginning something, along the lines of like, none of these things would break you individually, but, together with enough time, anything can break you. So I think part of the thing that scares me about the idea of eternal damnation, one of the things, but I think for me, it's the idea that, that there would be no exit and no possibility for growth or change, and so he's really stagnant in this place. And I think also for, looking at time from a human perspective, I think that we, when you're that age, when you're 13, a summer feels like a lifetime. You can make a best friend in 2 weeks, like a person that you would, go to prison for. Like you can, do something. You can make incredibly close connections. You can feel like you've grown up an enormous amount in a really short period of time. So I feel like and you do in a lot of ways, there's just a lot of changes at that time. So I feel like I wanted to kind of play with that juxtaposition of looking at what it actually means to have that much time and how much of a torture that would be. But then on this end, when we do have an exit, that time is a lot more sacred. And, kind of what do we do with, the same kind of window of time in different ways, and what is taking away that exit, or that fact that you're only there for, that sense that you're only there for a little bit. How does time play with that? So that's part of what I was looking at. So I love what you just said there about Ruth and Mickey too, because that's absolutely right. And Ruth, and in a lot of ways, Peyote and Mickey are on similar journeys in the sense that they're figuring out who they are and what they value, and and also kind of having the influence of a kind of precocious, very cool new friend, and what that kind of does to the equation.
I found their relationship to be so fascinating and so complex. And like, because when I think of, when we think back about like our most intense childhood friendships, we tend to remember them with these like very rosy colored glasses, and it was all about like being on equal footing and just like, friendship and joy with no sort of like asterisks on them,
Right.
but like their relationship is super complicated, and um like it seems like class plays an effect in how they relate to each other, but also like experience and coolness, and like it would be hard to say like who has the upper hand all the time, because there are things that they envy about each other, and I think
We have
that like,
different currencies. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, and it really like I think it also spoke to how at that age you're kind of like just this like big open bleeding heart, and that's why
Yes.
you can form these friendships so quickly, and how they can also then just like destroy your life,
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, the highs and the lows are so real at that age and so constant. And I think it's something too that actually carries on into adulthood a lot more than we as adults let children know. That in a lot of, I mean, one thing that I've noticed, at least in my in my experience so far in my 30s, is that we're all kind of making up what it means to be a grown up. We're all like, kind of just spitballing it, like, flying by the seat of our pants and figuring out what works as it works. I'm not going to lie and say there hasn't been a day that I've eaten frosting and a bottle of wine for dinner. I mean, it's happened, you know.
Last night I had a Carvel soft serve Reese's ice cream
Yes.
with hot fudge for dinner. I tricked my kids into thinking I had dinner beforehand, but my husband has been away on business since Monday. And
Uh-huh.
I'm just like, screw it. I
Yep.
in my freezer and I am eating this because
Yep.
I am, but it's true. And I don't
You're an
think
adult, you do what you want. Yeah.
exactly. But at the same time, like what
But
I'm
you gotta hide it from your kids. Yeah, the kids are the enforcing factor on that one. Yeah.
but like because we like if my kids were like, can I have this for dinner? I'd be like, no. But
Yeah.
I think one of the things that you're making a good point about, and it's interesting to see, because we do kind of put on airs as we're supposed to be growing up. And especially like Ruth does have a lot of savvy and some power in some ways. And it's interesting because like with Calamity and Peyote, when you kind of go back and you start learning more about them, like first you think one has the upper hand and then you think the other has the upper hand. But like one of the things I'm kind of realizing in my own life, and you talk a little bit, about certain purgatories. I lost my mother this summer, and I have an aging father who has some health issues.
Yeah.
And I think your mind sort of stays in a certain place at a point in adulthood, and you stop realizing how old you're getting. Your body starts aging,
Right.
and like things start happening that you have to be aware, like I'm aging. But you look at high school and you're like, that was 5-10 years ago. What do you mean that it's gonna be my 30th
Yeah.
reunion?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean I've been married for this long? Or like it just
Absolutely.
I just had that car 10 years ago. You just
Yeah.
you're stuck, and you don't realize that time is unsticking you until it's too late. That was
Absolutely.
my sad observation of
Oh,
this.
thank you. Yeah, that's a really
Yeah.
great way to go into the weekend. Yeah. No, no, I completely agree, and I think that that's something also that I was kind of playing with looking at Lily and Silas and the fact that they got pregnant so young. And I think because of the privilege that they grew up in and the privilege that's been handed down in the sense that that house is an intergenerational thing. Um, I think that for them, I wanted to kind of look at what happens when you're in that adolescent state, and then where everything's going fast, and you're in love with everybody around you, and you don't know who you want or what you're a kid, you're figuring it out, and then all of a sudden you're asked to be a parent, not just an adult but a parent, someone who's supposed to be responsible for another person. And kind of looking at their decision to really just go for it, to get married and really just rush the whole, like, you know, my opinion, like talking about them like they're like, oh man, don't tell them I said that. But you know, like you know, that it's that they had like a start and stop. So you can see, or at least I was hoping with the book, that the flashbacks to Sarah and the focus that's still happening on Sarah in that family 17 years later, I think kind of speaks to that dichotomy of being in the difference of time between being an adult and being that age, and then being in hell where there's no time at all.
I think it's so funny because like I just realized I had this very kind of nostalgic feeling for something, another property that I knew of while I was reading Silas and Lily, and it just kind of struck me that I was getting notes of American Beauty.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Got
that
it.
relationship between you know, Kevin Spacey's character and Annette Bedding's character, where you could tell like they
The first person to bring that up, so thank you, because I thought that was like so blatant and like uncomfortable, and literally nobody's mentioned it yet. So yeah,
really?
yeah, thank
Oh,
you.
okay, I'm glad I got that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I got those notes in there, you know, of like these two people who at one point there was something and there was passion, and they just kind of let like status and the fact that maybe they were too young when they had their kid, or they made these choices that, you know, like just completely took them away from themselves, because you know, I'm a high powered adult, I have to do this, I have to portray this, and just completely like blew everything up and are now just fundamentally screwed on so many levels. That was totally like, you know, like what I was getting from their relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's something that I really, I wanted to be able to look at, you know, and also something, you know, I think that they did, and Lily in particular. And I think that I always want to go to bat for Lily, because I feel like a lot of people kind of feel like, you know, write her off immediately for cheating, and like kind of have different or, you know, just don't like this kind of. And I think that it was really important for me as I was you know, I feel like I read so many books nowadays and in general where but especially nowadays, where the female protagonist, excuse me, I should really be able to say that word, I'm a writer, is their primary trait is self-hatred. You know, the most important thing that they want the audience the reader to know about them is that they hate themselves, and they have no idea why anyone would want to hang out with them or save them or whatever, you know, and that seems to be a really big trope. And that drives me crazy. Like, I'm sick of that. You know, I think as women, we've been told to hate ourselves our whole lives, and for a myriad of different reasons. And I'm done. So for me, like, it was very important when I was talking to the people about the audiobook, you know, I wanted to make sure I told the person who orchestrated it, you know, I just really want to make sure that these women are not spoken in a breathy kind of, you know, damsel in distress kind of way. Like, it's important to me that all four of them, really, Lily and Mickey and Sarah too, so the five kind of main women, Cal, but especially Lily and Cal, be unapologetic and be very kind of you know, have their flaws, but not just be constantly pontificating on how terrible they are. Because that was just so, it was getting old for me. And I think that, you know, as women, we're not allowed to make kind of mistakes that men get excused all the time for making. And so I wanted Lily to kind of be, you know, I wanted the reader to, by the end, at least have a little bit of question, or by the middle, you know, like, you know, oh, I kind of see her point. Like, I see why she did this. And that's kind of a big theme of the book in general, is that I want people to kind of see, you know, I wanted to write a book about unlikable people, and by the end make you like them, or at least root for them, or like be invested in them in some way, or see them from a broader place. And I think that that's just part of my social work background too, is the idea of really trying to promote empathy. And I think reading is just such an incredible tool for that, to be able to get into somebody else's head.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because something that like I was thinking was that like it really, like, the book puts their relationship under a microscope in a lot of ways, and it kind of does that therapy thing that's like, you know, what if we take a step back and stop assigning blame and just talk about cause and effect and motive and, you know, all these things. And like, it really allows you to sort of like look at this situation where it would be so easy to, and very like probably attractive to assign blame and invoke shame in people, you know, and like just, but to give you that chance to see it as like, this is not like about monsters and villains. This is about just like messed up, complicated people, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And that was the most important thing to me. And that is the most important thing to me still about being a writer. And it's my favorite thing about reading. You know, I love when I like really feel like a person is a real person and I actively miss them, like they're my friends and I need to call them. And then I remember that they're fictional. Like that is like my favorite feeling ever. So, and as you can tell, like I do a lot of reading. So I really like love to live in that world. And but I do think that the most interesting stories are the truly human ones. And I think the most interesting thing for us as people and as readers is to see ourselves in other people's messy stuff, because we all have our own messy stuff too. And if anyone says we don't, we're lying, you know, so it's there. And I feel like having, you know, being able to kind of, yeah, cut, like have there be a little bit less of this black and white, what's good and bad behavior, you know, because we do all come from different sets of circumstances and bring different things to the table.
So are you going to be, first of all, like everybody read this book, please, 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 don't think like it's going to be too depressing. Out if you've made it this far, you know, don't be like, I thought it was going to be funnier, or I thought it was going to be. It is funny.
Are you saying it's not funny? No, I'm kidding.
It's funny. Well, that's just it. You know, and like it really just like crept up on me because it's very funny. And like one minute you're laughing and you're just like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then the next minute you're just like, your heart is like pumping at a million miles a minute because you feel for these characters. This is what like a sleeper.
That's a dream to hear, by the way.
Yeah,
that's like exactly what I wanted when I set out to do this. So thank you so much. That's really got me in my heart.
It's like a sleeper emotional read. It's not, and in a way, it's not
sleeper emotional read. I'm going to quote you on that one for sure.
Please do.
Yeah.
Hey, that's my blurb. Sleeper emotional read.
Yeah.
In a different way, I felt that way about Grady Hendrix, my best friend's exorcism, where it was again, and this book is not it's not graphic horror. There's no body horror in this, you know, but you know, it is very much like here's this crazy crazy situation. Like in Grady's book, it's like it's the 80s and my friend is getting possessed in the middle of the satanic panic, and here it's like
I want him to do a Spotify playlist so bad. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
put on it.
No, I want him to do one for that book. I mean, the music references in that book are amazing.
They totally
do such a good job with that. I'm so sorry I cut you off. I just got excited. Yeah.
No, it's totally cool because in this one, it's like, you know, like the same thing. Like you think you're going in for one thing, but you really, really feel a lot. There's so many feels, so many emotions, and it's wonderful. So I want to know, are you writing something else? Would you ever revisit this world, or have you kind of said everything you need to say about the workplace in hell?
I mean, I don't think I can ever be done with Workplace in Hell. I mean, it's just a gift that keeps on giving. And it's because, you know, there's always going to be a ton of stuff that annoys us. So there will always be new things to add. I do think that, so I am working on something else. I have a second book coming out with Berkeley sometime in the next year or two. This is my first time doing this, so I don't really know, but so I have that. I'm working on that now. It's not a sequel, but it is, you know, I love to poke holes in things, and I love to kind of take your, like with Sign Here and with I wrote 2 books before Sign Here that did not get picked up. So just announcing that to any writers who are listening who are feeling dissuaged. You know, this is my 3rd manuscript. Second one I actually didn't send in any publishers because it was garbage, but the first one I did, and you know, and got rejections, kind rejections, but rejections all the same. But yeah, so I just lost track of what I was saying. What was I just talking about? The hell, right. So my next book is looking at kind of a similar idea where you take the world as we know it, but then there's kind of this one big twist, this one kind of flip, and looking at kind of how people react to that change and what that what the fallout is for that. But it'll touch on some similar topics, but be a little bit different. And there's a whodunit twisty mystery in there as well.
Sounds great.
I love writing suspense because when I write, I don't storyboard or plan ahead. So I'm in as much suspense as the reader is, which I think makes it really fun for me to kind of be able to, just be along for the ride and see what happens.
This was so much fun.
I agree. Thank you so much for being the best
love
opening
this one.
podcast for my podcasting
thank
experience. I
you.
really appreciate it. Yeah.
So once again, please everybody read this book. It was so good. Signed here by Claudia Lux. Amazing.
Thank you
Amazing.
so much.
Amazing.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So once again, this was Jessikah with Turn the Page podcast. My co-host was
Goodbye, it's Jen.
and
Bye.
her guest was
I'm Claudia Lux. Thank you so much, y'all. And yeah, if anybody wants to look at that Hell orientation packet, it's on my website too, claudialux.com. And I cracked myself writing it. Cracked myself
So
up.
excited. I'm really glad that there's more that I can read in this world right now, you know. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not done with it forever yet. Who knows? I love it. So we'll see. Thanks so much, y'all, for having me. I really appreciate it.
So we are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.